Hi, my name is Leisha Vance, and this lovely house is the house that Potterhill Homes built for me less than 8 years ago. And it looks great, right? It's a wonderful house, or it was. I did the whole package. I got the solar panels, I got the geothermal, I got it LEED Gold certified, party siding. I paid for all the bells and whistles because I wanted this to be a really nice place, and it was while I lived here. But looks can be deceiving, and I'm going to show you just as a public service announcement of what's been going on. Alright? This is my perspective. I'm not saying Potterhill Homes build all their homes this way, but I do want the public at large to know about this. In February 2018, the house, I had to move because my mom died a couple of years ago, so I put the house on the market. And in February 2018, it was actually sold, but there was a crack in the basement floor, which I thought was settling, that the buyer wanted investigated. Well, come to find out, her structural engineer reported that the house was actually moving. Okay? So we contacted Potterhill, and Potterhill said, well, you have a structural warranty company, contact them. We contacted the warranty company, and then it was just like delay. You know, they delayed getting us the paperwork. I sent it to them, they delayed and denied receiving it the first time, and then when they finally got it, they sat on it. So there's been a lot of back and forth with Potterhill and the warranty company, because both of them are pointing fingers at each other. But in the short, the house is moving. All right, and we're just going to start documenting all of the things that we see with the warranty company denying that the house is moving at first, and then denying the type of movement. But I noticed one of the last times I was up here that the driveway didn't seem level. And what's actually happening here is the driveway is separating. All right, there's a crack here. There's at least a 2-inch difference here, and a width of at least an inch here in the sections. And then when you go up here, this used to be all one level at one point. Now there's what, a 6-8 inch difference? It's actually pulling away from the house. Okay, so we're going to show you a lot more in bits and pieces, but just bear with us as we go along. Alright, so excuse the lighting in here. I had to have the electricity and the water turned off because of all the issues. But basically, this house was in pristine condition about a year ago. And there were little cracks starting in the walls. And we kept pointing this out because my structural engineer, I've gotten follow-up reports, and he said the house is not only moving vertically, but it's also moving laterally. And so during that time, the warranty company was sending out their engineers, and you know, at every juncture, they're like, well, we're looking for a date where we can get them out here. 3 weeks later, still not here. Well, we're working on it, it's just they're really busy. And then they contacted my neighbor and wanted to get permission to drive the drilling equipment because it needs to be drilled down to the bedrock to see what's actually going on. He said yes, they could drive across his yard with the drilling equipment, and the next thing you know, their engineers show up with 2 guys and over-the-shoulder drilling rig. But in the meantime, the house is continuing to move, and you can now see daylight through the back door that goes to the decking, and the door doesn't open anymore. The cracks are excessive. They are appalling and huge. The deck is crooked now. It is literally pulling away from the house, and we'll show you an outside shot of that here shortly. When you go over here to just this doorway, there's more cracks, more very defined cracks. And the sheetrock is actually falling off over here. You can see chunks of sheetrock falling off right here. The crack is separating right here at the juncture. There's cracks all along the doorway in here. So just to show you that there are major cracks happening all around the house. This is the master bedroom. And look at this crack at this window. It's pretty major itself. You know, and it's coming apart at where the window was set in and the sheetrock. It goes all the way down. It's happening at this window over here on the bottom crack. And, you know, it's just everywhere. Everywhere. And, you know, I bought these like energy efficient blinds. You know, I put custom blinds in the whole house, $1,000 worth of blinds. So it's not like I thought, oh, I'll just do this as cheaply as I can. I was trying to make this my own little piece of heaven and hoping that, you know, at some point in the future it would be somebody else's piece of heaven as well. Okay, we're back. So we're going from the degree of seriousness, and it's getting pretty serious in the basement. As you can see, these big concrete slabs are all cracked and separating. You can actually see daylight to the outside patio if you follow this huge separation of these two slabs. All right, this slab, I guess at its widest point, what would you say? It's 4 inches?
Yeah, 4 or 5 inches.
4 or 5 inches. Here's the, this is the crack they initially wanted investigated, and it wasn't anywhere near this wide. That's probably 2.5 to 3 inches there. More cracks here. Here's a new crack here that's already a 1/2 inch. And here are the holes that they drilled through my basement floor. The two guys that they sent with the carry around drilling rig. So what they did find was that the fill they put underneath the slabs to level it up, they found that that fill was rounded. Normally, or what you're supposed to do, from what I've been told, is you're supposed to use an angular fill so the slabs won't roll. But that's not what Potterhill did. They used a rounded fill. I also want to point out that the company that was supposed to do the subsurface investigation for Potterhill to see if it was okay to build this house here, their name is Alton Witzig. And when I went to the city to get that subsurface investigation, it's not on record. Guess who the warranty company hired to do the soil samples and the drilling samples for the investigation for the movement? Alton Witzig. W-I-T-Z-I-G. Sorry. I think it would probably be pronounced Witzig in German. But, so, I don't know what's going on. There's something fishy going on because that company is the same company that was supposed to do the subsurface investigation. And they did not drill to the bedrock. They didn't even get as far as the fill. So they really didn't do a thorough analysis. And their conclusion was that the house was only moving vertically. Now, what I did is I contacted my homeowner's insurance, and they said they do not cover earth movement or flood movement or anything of those nature, so nothing was covered. But what they did do is they sent their engineer out to determine if the house was moving both vertically and laterally and to determine what was going on. So they were really nice enough to do that, and I was very appreciative. And what they determined was the house was moving both directions, and they also found so many things that Potterhill did when building this house that were not up to code. They were supposed to put joints in every so often, and they didn't do that. They also confirmed that the fill underneath was rounded. They confirmed that the soil around the house, when you put in a house with a walkout basement or any kind of basement, you need to not be filling in with fill. You need to be, I guess, breaking earth that hasn't been broken. And Potterhill didn't do that. When I chose this lot, they said, you know, it really hadn't been developed and that sort of thing. It was infill. The city was given a tax break for that. And I was really excited about this lot because you see all these trees and stuff back here, and we'll show you a little more later. That's the Mount Airy Forest. So supposedly no one can ever build. It's a protected covenant area, and it wraps around as well. But this lot was not this steep. Potterhill left it this steep. Potterhill finished the house at the end of November of 2011. They weren't able to do the yard because it was really bad, wet, rainy weather, but they promised me that they would do the yard, they would get it up to the grade that's specified in the architectural drawings. You know, 6 months later, I'm calling them saying, where is my yard? Where's my topsoil? I need to plant my yard. The city won't give me, they won't sign off on my house being done and give me the tax breaks until the house is signed off as completed. There needed to be some document on file. And Potterhill just didn't. They were bringing topsoil on, but it wasn't really topsoil. It was like more fill from across the street. And they were just putting it on and not really, they weren't getting it up to the grade. And my builder, my foreman, said, frankly, I don't know how we're ever going to get it up to that grade. I asked them about putting in a retaining wall down here, and they basically said no. It would cost too much money, they'd have to get a permit for it, and it was just too much trouble. They did put a retaining wall in the front yard because I insisted on it. Because it was so treacherous, if you stepped off the sidewalk out front, you would just start falling down to the end of a very rocky hill. And so they put in a retaining wall, but there's a story that goes to that retaining wall issue as well, and we'll cover that here shortly. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, there's a retaining wall that I basically made Potterhill put in for the front yard, so people wouldn't be hurt if they accidentally stepped off the sidewalk. And one day, the company was here putting it in before I left for work, and there was this great big pipe laying beside the trench they had dug to put the wall in. And I said, that's a drainage pipe, right? You're going to put that back in when you start putting the soil and building the wall up. And they said, yes, ma'am. So I'm like, great. I go to work and I come back and there's this lovely retaining wall here. And guess what? The pipe is still laying down here at the side. And I'll show you the pipe here in just a minute. But I suspect, I don't have any truth or, any hard evidence of it, but I suspect this is contributing to the washout that's occurring under the house, because I've been told by the basement doctor the soil is literally washing out. So the pipe is still laying here. I called Potterhill. I'm like, I think there's an issue, and I got this. Don't worry, little lady. It's all good. It'll probably be fine. We're not going to worry about it. So I did hold on to that pipe. It is in the garage. I'm going to show it to you here right now. And here is the drainage pipe that they forgot to put in. And it's a very sizable pipe. I would guess that's like a 5-inch pipe, a 4 to 5 inch pipe in diameter. But this, this is what I held on to because I knew at some point this was going to come back to haunt us. And if you look, here's more cracking going on. And this is the outer basement or outer wall. And the house is actually separating from the garage right here. But look at these cracks. That's at least 2 inches wide. Okay, just once more, here is the differential between the driveway and the garage floor. And you can see the driveway, or the house is literally pulling away from the driveway. Craig's going to walk up here and show you the difference here, now that we have the garage door up. So that's at least a good 7 inches. We'll get some measuring tapes and show you here in subsequent videos. Okay, just to give you some perspective, this steepness is what Potterhill created. And I had told them I wanted to create a no-mow landscape, but that they would give me topsoil so I would have something to plant. I just didn't want the sod and any landscaping done. And so they took it as they didn't need to do anything with the yard, and that's why I was fighting for them to bring in some topsoil. But this is what they left me with, and I tried to plant all kinds of things in here. English ivy, but it was just a clay soil, so I had to bring in rock. We could not even get, it was so steep, we couldn't even get the soil to stay up here. I was paying for someone to bring in the soil. If you'll look over here at the house, it's washing away what little soil there was that Potterhill left. That pipe was not exposed like that. So when they were building the house next door, they assured me that the house next door would be a 1-story house. And as they were building it, it looked to me like it wasn't going to be 1-story. And as you can see, it is a 2-story house. It is a very tall 2-story house. It's actually 3 if you count the basement. It actually shades my solar panels in the afternoons. And although it doesn't affect a whole bunch of the solar generation, it does affect it some. But I was never compensated for any of that. Okay, also, while they were building this house, they kept flooding my property. At that point, I'd finally gotten rock and soils around the house so I could create landscape beds, and I'd gotten them established and everything. And then one day I come home and there's a pipe shooting water out of the house, and no one's here. And it was a Friday before the weekend, and it had been doing it so much that this was just all covered in mud and silt, and all of the landscape rock that I'd paid for was covered. And you know, basically I'm calling the foreman saying, you need to get someone over here right now. So Potterhill did replace the rock, but they kept flooding. And then when they were trying to get the sod over here established, they kept turning on the sprinklers and leaving them on all day. Now you can see the slope of this land. When you turn on sprinklers onto new earth, what's going to happen? Bingo. It's just total washing down of the silt and the soil, and again, they were covering everything. All right, one other thing I want to point out here is look at all of this high dollar fiber cement hardy siding that I paid for, and since the house is moving, it is actually separating and starting to fall off the house. Look at these cracks in the foundation, in the concrete supporting structural walls. So we've been telling the warranty company and Potterhill, look, there's more and more damage. And you know, we've got actually whole chunks of concrete falling apart from the poured concrete walls. And they would not believe us. They kept saying, no, you know, it's still just vertical movement. It's not moving laterally. Look at the deck. It is literally twisting and coming apart from the house. You cannot tell me that's just vertical movement. Okay, more perspective. I am actually 5 foot 4 inches tall. Look at these cracks. I had this patio poured. I had this retaining wall put in. The patio is literally coming apart from the house. There's cracks in the patio slabs. More cracks at the window. I had in this block window put in, and they are literally cracking and breaking. Over here, we're looking at least 4 inches of separating between the house and the patio. And there is a little bit of droppage of the patio as well. Look at that deck. The structural supports are actually bowing, and the deck is now leaning away from the house. It's not even level anymore. Okay, so here's the front door, and it looks okay, but it won't shut correctly. you really have to work at it to get it to shut and lock. So there's no doubt it's moving laterally. And, you know, the final verdict in January, RWC, the warranty company, said that, you know, we don't believe you. We don't believe the pictures you've been sending us. You know, if you want us to come out and look at it again, we'll do it. And I thought, well, great. They're just going to take another 6 months to tell me that it's not moving again. So I didn't respond to them. So they contacted me, I think it was sometime in February, and asked me if they could send someone out. And so basically, they sent someone out. They went back and took several more weeks, and they've extended an offer. But their limit is $100,000. This is at least a $220,000 house. But the thing is, if I sign off and accept that payment, they're wanting me to release them from any further issues of house movement, and they want me to release Potterhill. I cannot release Potterhill's liability for this. This is on them. I have report after report after report that the house was moving laterally and vertically. I have at least 4 from 4 separate sources. So this is my story. And what I can tell you is less than a year and a half ago, this house was in pristine condition. There were no cracks, the yard was landscaped beautifully. It was a gorgeous house, and it was my own little piece of Eden. I put literally thousands and thousands of dollars of soil and plants. Nature's in your backyard. And it was a wonderful house. I had $6 electric bills in the summer. It was so great. And because Potterhill and RWC were fighting amongst themselves, nobody wants to take responsibility. And so here I am stuck now with a house that's basically unsellable. And this is on you, Potterhill. You knew what you were doing. Even when I was asking the right questions, you were lying to me. You were fibbing. You know, that drainage pipe needed to be in this front bed. You needed to put in that retaining wall. You did not do the subsurface investigation of this lot before you built on it. These are issues you should have done. And even if you think you don't have responsibility, the right thing to do would be to buy back this house. But you guys took so long, and there's so much damage. This house is salvageable. It could be a great house again, but it needs money that I don't have. Even if I sign off on this house, I can't find a buyer for even half the price. Somebody needs to do something. Potterhill, you know what you need to do. And if you don't do the right thing, karma is a bitch. And you will pay for it at some point. Now again, I'm not saying Potterhill builds all their houses like this, but this is my story. And this is what's happened to me.